Real estate agents, if you're making content or running ads and you're getting views or leads, but you're not actually converting them, I'm gonna walk you through step by step how you can actually utilize content or utilize your ads to get people from stranger to ultimately wanting to work with you and becoming your client so that you can help them buy or sell their dream home and everyone can be happy. And if you don't know me, my name is Jarvis. I run Jarvis Media Consolidated. We've generated some great results for real estate agents, helped over 200 plus agents across the country, and we're going to use that information I gathered from working with those agents to walk through the strategies I've seen work really, really well, and ultimately how you can see growth in your own business by utilizing these strategies. So again, in this video, we're going to actually walk through how you can get people from that first level at the top of their funnel, where basically they're coming in as a complete stranger, ultimately building know, like, and trust so that at the very end here, they become a client. Now, it's very easy in just looking at a graph like this, but in reality, it is actually simple. It's just not always the easiest thing to do, or it might not be, the first thing that comes to mind as to how you can do this to get people along that path and ultimately have a steady stream of people seeing you and then ultimately becoming your client. And so that's what we're going to break down today. So ultimately, what you need to understand about any kind of funnel, whether it's content or ads or whatever you may be doing, is that there are different stages basically as you're going through this. So at the very top of the stranger, you need to have some really mass appealing and strong value content. When I'm saying content here, I basically mean like the content of your ads or the content of your offer or the content of your videos that you're posting on social media, whatever it might be. So what this means is that this needs to appeal to the masses. And when I say masses, I mean the masses of the person you're targeting. Like obviously, if you're trying to get in front of home buyers or sellers in your market, we're not going to be going after like 14-year-olds or 18-year-olds even. We're going to be going after people who actually can benefit from buying or selling a home in the near future, because those are the folks we're going to actually be able to work with. So we want to target our actual demographic that makes sense for us, and then we need to make content that's going to be mass appealing for them. And this is where it's really important too. You need to have no sales content, especially when we're talking about organic social, but this applies to paid as well, is that when you're first walking up to somebody, this isn't the stage where you're like, hey, do you want to buy or sell with me? And this is what most agents do. Most agents who actually post on social media, a lot of agents don't post on social media, but they'll post. And like, this is going to be like what their feed looks like, right? Like out of their 4 pieces of content, they're going to have like maybe one video that's like them and like their family, right? And like, they're like, oh yeah, like, hey, look at this fun thing that we're doing today, right? And then the rest of this content, this is all going to be basically sales content. And it's going to be basically like, oh, I'm #1 in my market, or oh, check out this awesome home that I just helped somebody with, or hey, do you need somebody to work with? Like, here's my headshot and here's all of my accolades or a review. But in reality, we don't think about really enough where the prospect is coming from. So think about it this way. You are going on social media, whether you're targeting people with an ad or you're targeting people with organic content or whatever it might be, you are going on social media as a user to enjoy content and mostly see content from friends or family or entertaining brands that you like, right? And this depends on every platform's a little bit different, but especially Facebook, Instagram, you're really going there to see what your friends and family are up to, right? And so you as a business are coming up and you're doing what's called interruption-based marketing. You're interrupting their journey, their experience, to give them some sort of solicitation, really. And this is the same thing like ads on TV, right? You would watch a program and then you would get an ad for a service, right? And or product, and that service or product should be geared towards the audience that watches that video, right? But here's the thing. We live in a world now where organic content is completely lives or die by how valuable it is to the audience. So if you're posting this like high sales content, and this is all just kind of showcasing you as a real estate agent and how you can be the best agent for them, that feels valuable to you because you're like, oh, well, I have all these accolades. But in reality, to the viewer, they're on social media to watch stuff from their friends and family. You are interrupting that experience and not giving them anything. Like, they don't really care if you're a good agent or not at that stage of the game, right? That stuff's important later on. But at that stage of the game, they're like, oh, okay, like, I don't really care. And that's why you see really reduced rates of your posts. And that's why when you actually post your family stuff here, you're getting a much higher viewership, right? Because what's ending up happening is that this kind of content is authentic and engaging and appealing to your friends and family, which is what your friends and family are on the platform to see. So you see all these like personal pieces of content do really well, and you're like, oh man, like, is it just that people really love my kids and they don't actually like love me? It's that no, it's that you are actually having product market fit with the platform you're on and the message that you're sending. And so when you are at the very top of your funnel, which is what organic content for your business is designed to be, is at very top of the funnel, you can't lead with this sales content. And most agents are doing only that. And that's why they're not getting any results. But in reality, it's that you need to actually have content that's far more appealing. Now, here's the thing. This kind of like family content too, that's not bad, but it's also not really ideal. What you want to have is content that is, yes, authentic, but it's also valuable for the right audience. Now, here's the difference here is that this is valuable for an audience, but that's just your friends and family, which, by the way, that's not bad because you are still engaging with your sphere of influence. And if you're doing it correctly, you can have that be a reminder that you're an agent, right? If you're posting on your agent profile or your agent page, which I always recommend, then every time you post anything, even if it's about your friends and family or whatever it might be, it still says like John Smith, real estate agent, or John or Jane, realtor, or whatever it might be. And so you're still actually getting benefit out of working your network by doing that. But if you post to just your personal like Facebook page or whatever, you kind of lose that opportunity. So that's why I always recommend post everything to your business pages because it's only going to be helpful for you. So your views here are going to go down with the salesy content and up with this promotional content. But again, we want to be authentic, just like how this like family piece of content is authentic, but we need to be valuable for the right audience as well. And so our audience is not necessarily for this campaign to get in front of our sphere of influence, right? We want to get in front of more people and have them become strangers who ultimately become clients. So because of this, we need to be valuable for the right audience, and it needs to be, essentially likely to get enough distribution, enough views, that we can get in front of enough people so we can actually get results, right? Like if you have a good piece of content, like for that's good in terms of like it can provide value, but you package it in a way where only 10 people are going to see it, then that's a problem. So we need to find a way to kind of get around that and get enough distribution so that we're kind of hitting all three of these major points here. So here's what this kind of looks like. If you're making videos, let's take those 4 videos for an example, right? And let's say we replace that like salesy content. So let's say you still have like your family post here, because again, that's not bad. That's fine. And that's what's getting your best views right now. So we can still do that, right? That's kind of like your family content. Now for this, we replace the sales content instead with, let's say, videos, short form videos, where you are talking exactly to a specific avatar about something that's beneficial for them. Now, when we talk about beneficial, this is where the value comes in, right? It needs to be beneficial for them. And here's the thing, it doesn't actually have to be that beneficial for you. Because think about it this way, this is basically like a lead magnet, because this is an organic social media campaign. So if you're running paid, and I'll talk about that as well, this can be a little bit expedited, a little sped up because you're paying for the distribution. But at the first stage of the game, what we're doing here for organic is we're actually trying to just get in front of people so that we can show up. Because if they don't know about us, there's nothing we can do, right? We need to actually get in front of them in the first place. So organic, this is where you want to have content that's going to be highly valuable. So this is where you want to make sure that you're targeting the right folks and you're providing value here. And by the way, I always define value as content that is transformative in a positive way or highly likely to be transformative in a positive way for your audience. So just saying what the interest rates are or that month or whatever, that's not valuable. That's not value content. Instead, saying, oh, here are the interest rates, how that affects this market, here's how that can apply to buyers and sellers, here's more assets that you can use to kind of make sure that you're doing the right move here, and here are more benefits so that you can make the right call. Like that is something that is more likely to be transformative because you're giving more than just repeating information that they could Google. You're actually providing something that they might not be able to get somewhere else. That's why that kind of content is valuable, and just spewing interest rates is not. So organic content, at the first stage, we need to actually get that distribution with the right audience, with our target audience. So to do that, we need to make sure it's highly valuable to them. So this is where a lot of people will do things like, home tours. They'll do something like, top 3 like neighborhoods. They'll do like, don't make these buyer mistakes. They'll do something like stories/experiences, and so on and so forth, right? There's just a couple of ideas here. Now, what's interesting is that you need to know every single piece of content is going to fit into our goal here of getting distribution with the right audience in different ways. And I'll show you an example here. So home tours, for instance, what's the benefit here? Is that a lot of people like home tours, right? You have a lot of distribution because people love to go through homes, especially if they're really beautiful homes. They like to see what's going on there, right? That's why if you look at like Ken Pozak, like, right, that's where he really got started with some really, really high end homes, right? And so he got a lot of distribution there. But here's the thing, is that the tricky thing with home tours is that everyone likes those, including, not always people who are looking to buy or sell immediately. So if you're playing a long play, like Ken was playing there, that's not bad. But you're going to play a longer play because you're not just getting in front of, you're not targeting people who are looking to buy or sell, right? It's not an ideal audience. And so because of that, you're going to get more views, but they're not all going to be the best views possible. Now that's okay. I'm just kind of illustrating the pros and cons here, right? Now, if you say, let me put a little gap here. If you say, top 3 neighborhoods, that is where you can get probably a little bit closer, right? People who are going to actually value like the top 3 neighborhoods, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of interest there with, folks who aren't necessarily looking to buy or sell immediately. But for the most part, when you're talking about like the top 3 neighborhoods in like a local market, this is actually something that can be a little bit more targeted than the last example we just gave here. Because what's ending up happening, if I can get this to actually give me a little space here, what's actually happening when you're targeting home tours is that anybody under the sun is going to find interest in that, right? That's not really hard to do. And so because of that, what we want to make sure to do is that with top 3 neighborhoods, we're able to, okay, I cannot make a space here for the life of me. So what we're able to do here is we want to make sure that this audience is actually going to be a little bit more targeted here. And that is what top neighborhoods is going to be able to do, because people really care about neighborhoods when they're looking to buy or sell. Yeah, they might have just some pride when they're living in a certain neighborhood and they want to kind of just see what the other neighborhoods are like, see what friends or family of theirs live in the neighborhoods that are seen like the top neighborhoods. But in reality, it's like you're going to care more about that if you're buying or selling soon. And so that's why it's a little bit better for targeting the ideal audience here. And maybe you'll get a slightly lower distribution, but again, it's probably more in line with what we want to do. Okay, we got the pen to be working now, finally. So we're targeting a little bit better with the top 3 neighborhoods, right? It's more targeted for our ideal audience. So that's really great, but we are going to get slightly lower views because, again, our ideal audience isn't a big audience. People looking to buy or sell in the very near future, that's not a massive amount of people versus the kind of people, in our total audience, like in a total, like, city or neighborhood or whatever we might be in. So because of that, we want to make sure that we're actually doing, we're not actually over prioritizing on views here, because quality of views is a far more important metric here. So you're going to get less of an audience, and that is okay. So that's just an idea here. And just kind of continue here, I just want to kind of give you like more of an idea about the differences of like, the benefits of these different like subjects here. So like, don't make these like buyer mistakes, right? So that is on the other end of the spectrum, where like we are really talking here about content that is highly interesting for a very targeted audience. And I just realized that targeted has one T in it. I always think it's got two. And whatever this new iPad update is does not like me. More targeted audience. Problem is, again, very small distribution. And then lastly, story slash experiences. What I really love about story slash experiences, like this could be like, I was helping somebody buy their first home and they had this huge issue. We couldn't get around it. And ultimately we found this thing that really opened it up. And now what they're doing is they're able to actually get into a great home. It completely changed their quality of life. One of my clients had a great story where he talked about how he was giving a home tour and like this 80-year-old woman like walked out of the shower. She didn't know they was going to be there. They didn't know she was going to be there. They screamed, she screamed, everybody screamed. It was hilarious. It's a great video and it did really, really well. Why is that? It's because stories really capture attention. And what's really nice about this, and so you're going to get mass exposure. Like everybody's going to find interest in that. But what's really cool about that is that if you do it correctly, you can have a moral there. So it actually kind of gives you, I'll make this yellow because it's kind of in the middle here. So you can make a moral of the story. And that can basically be some sort of benefit for buyers or sellers. And so obviously, yeah, like it's not as targeted of an audience because it's going to get more exposure because anybody's going to find enjoyment out of that story. But because if you do have the moral of the story, even though you're going to get like a wider net, the people who are going to get value out of that, like the buyers or sellers, they're going to get more value out of it because it teaches a principle. And so basically when you have stories or experiences, you're kind of getting, an example of like home tours where you're kind of getting like mass exposure, but you're also getting like the more and more targeted audience getting more benefit and can go downstream a little bit more, downstream into your funnel as like a more targeted content because the moral of the story is going to be really relevant to them, but everybody's going to get enjoyment out of it. So that's a good example of like how these different content pieces can be different for like this distribution goal at the very top of your funnel. So when you're making your content, just keep in mind that like you want to make your content really, really strong to some degree. Any of these could work really, like if you're doing home tours or a talking head video about top 3 neighborhoods or don't make these buyer mistakes or stories or experiences like that you've had. Any one of those can really work well, but they're all going to have different effects there. But really what that comes down to is ultimately at the end of the day, you still really want the top here to be mass exposure, and that's relative, right? Mass exposure versus like, posting a headshot of yourself, and value. And why is that? It's because at the very top here, nobody knows who you are. And again, you're interrupting their experience on social media. So when you do that, you need to be giving some sort of value. Otherwise, you won't get any views. And even if you do get some views, there's not going to be any incentive for them to watch more because what you're doing is you're training them to not care about your content when you're not providing value. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not that you should feel bad because nobody wants to see your face all day. It's just that you, to them, are an agent, a random real estate agent who's likely trying to, make them buy or sell a home. And unfortunately, a lot of agents have a bad view or get a bad rap because a lot of agents just kind of harass people with marketing. So instead, what you can do is provide value and get people to start to open the door a little bit to your content because you're giving them a positive experience, right? Think about like Disney World. It's like if you walked into Disney World and the first thing that happened would be that your legs suddenly were super sore and you were like hungry and the lines were like too long, like that's not really great, right? But when you walk into Disney World, what happens? You walk up into this beautiful garden, you have all these beautiful shops, you have music playing all around that's kind of making you feel magical. You walk down and then first thing in sight is this huge castle, right? So the wonderment and the awe, everything there is designed so that your experience is amazing from the get-go because At the end, you're gonna have sore feet, you're gonna be hungry, your kids are gonna be tired, you're gonna, all that stuff is gonna happen. But at the beginning, they need to sell you on the experience. And so that is what we need to do. We need to sell people on the experience of your content. And that also does apply to ads as well, which I'll talk about. But it's just a little bit more sped up, like I said before. So middle of your funnel, this is where you can kind of have a little bit more dense content, right? So you still need to have value here, but the middle of your funnel is where you can get a little bit more particular. So a good example is like, let's say with mass exposure, you start off with something like content about like home tours, right? And so you make a lot of content about home tours, and then let's say 75% of the time, no, actually, let's say 60% of the time, your content is about home tours, right? Like that sounds great. And then next, you make content that's a little bit more about like, mistakes that like buyers or sellers, should avoid, right? That's far more geared towards a very specific audience. And so maybe we want to make that a little bit more like, 30% of the content we make. And so what's going to happen is more people are going to end up seeing these. These posts are going to be just more visible anyway, because it's more mass appealing. But people will start to get served this content more often because they're viewing this home tour content, because you're basically earning a little bit of trust here with this fun content that's valuable to them. Then they're actually going to be served more of this content as a kind of an experiment. That's how these algorithms work. And so you're going to get more people to see this content just out the gate because people saw this content. And then you're going to get an even smaller audience that's going to see something a little bit more particular. And that's where you can basically have maybe an actual like advertisement. Because this is where you can actually say like, hey, here is an offer I'm going to provide to you, like a home buyer or seller, right? Here's something that I'm going to provide here. And this is where basically from an organic perspective, you would have a lead magnet, right? This would be like, hey, download this thing that's going to walk you through like the best things you should do before buying or selling a home, or here's a free course I made on how to buy or sell a home in this local market, or even, which is one of my favorites, hey, here's a link to set up an appointment where we'll show you how to buy or sell your own home so that you don't have to pay any agent commissions. You don't have to pay any fees. You can just learn how to do it yourself, right? A lot of people feel one or two ways about that. They're like, I don't want to give away all my secrets for free. My take on that is that your secrets are not actually secret. You're not as high tech as you might think you are. You're not as like other agents are doing what you're doing to some degree. There's too many agents for there to be secret strategies that other people haven't already figured out. And so because of that, like your secrets are far less valuable, but they can be more valuable to you if you leverage them as a way to get in the door, right? And so ultimately, this is where you can kind of have an advertisement to some sort of a lead magnet, which gets a conversation going. And this is how you basically get people to ultimately want to work with you. Because here's what's really cool. 80% of buyers or sellers work with the first agent that they actually talk to. So really, what do we want to do? We just want to be the first agent that they talk to. And then we win 80% of the time. And we say talk to, that's a meaningful conversation. Like we want to be talking to them about what their goals are, what they're looking to accomplish, right? That is the end goal here from this. And ultimately, if we just do that and we don't even sell them well, or we don't even have like a really great system about convincing them why we're better, we should still win 80% of those conversations. The goal is just to how do we get to a conversation? And so ultimately, the journey right here, the client journey, is super clear. It's just not always the easiest thing to do, or it takes more work than a lot of people are willing to do. So again, kind of looking at this from a different perspective here, let's say we have like basically, in this case, we have like 5 stages, right? And the biggest issue you're going to run into is that you try and skip these stages, and that is where you run into issues. So a lot of people, they have like their beginning content, right? Like their first piece of content or their most prominent content, and then they try to get people to become clients directly from that. And that is skipping all of these other steps here, which is why you're running into issues and why it's not working. Because you can't just have a post that says, I'm a great real estate agent, work with me. And people say, wow, I'm so happy they interrupted my experience here because I've been looking for an agent. And for some reason, I didn't Google search or ask any of my friends or family about an agent I could use. Instead, I've just been waiting for somebody to post a really boring, really lazy piece of content for me to tell them that they're the top producing agent. And I've never seen any other agent do that, so I'm going to actually work with you. Like, how ridiculous is that, right? Obviously, that's not how people end up working with other agents. Or that's not how people end up working with agents. Instead, the client journey is that you want to see the first piece of content, and then you want to kind of sell them on more downstream secondary content, right? And again, that's our first example here is like home tours maybe, and the second example here is like here are some mistakes you want to avoid, right? And so we slowly get a portion of our audience to go into this next step. So we accomplish that goal, we accomplish this goal. Then we actually want to get them to utilize a lead magnet. And the better your content is and the better your lead magnet is, the more people will trail through here, right? So that's why you need to have a good lead magnet, not just like, hey, go to my website for reviews. That's not a good lead magnet. Nobody cares about that. It has to have, the more value the person gets out of the lead magnet, the more results you'll see from the lead magnet. Then ultimately, we can get into a conversation. And that's why I personally love that, hey, let me just teach you how to buy or sell a home without an agent, because it leads you into a conversation that they really want to get on because it's high value. And then you can showcase all the difficulties of being an agent and all the stresses and all the things you have to remember. And to where it's like, you know what? It doesn't make sense. Like, I'd rather pay you than have to go through all of that stress, because being an agent is hard. And people don't want to deal with that. They just don't know how hard it is until you explain it to them. This is a great way to have the conversation with them, get the specifics about their property and their goals, train them on it, not really have to sell them very hard, because the difficulty of the process will sell them itself, right? And that is how ultimately you can get, again, with 80% of people take that conversation and they become an agent or they become a client. That is, we want that stat to work in our favor. So we just want to have as many conversations as possible to kind of increase the likelihood that we get more clients. And that's ultimately how you do it. You just have to have people go through the pipeline that makes sense for them. And ultimately, here it's like there's an analogy that I've started to use, which is basically, if I go up to you and I say, hey, do you want some salt? You might be like, no, I don't want any salt. Like, why would I want salt? That's so random. But if I said, hey, come on in, I have this really cool, like, brand new movie that, like, you're gonna love this. And, like, everybody says this is the best movie of all time. It's gonna be incredible. You come into the house, you start watching this movie with me, assuming that we're already, like, friends, right? You sit down, you start to watch the movie with me. I'm like, hey, like, do you want, like, a soda? Do you want, like, a beer? Like, do you want anything? I'm like, yeah, like, I'll take a beer. Like, awesome, cool, here. And then, hey, man, I also made some popcorn. Like, would you like some popcorn? It'll go really great with the beer. Yeah, like, that sounds great. Have some popcorn. And I give you popcorn that has a lot of butter on it and no salt. And then I say, hey, do you want salt? They're going to be like, yeah, actually, salt would be great for this popcorn. That's the difference, right? You have one experience where it doesn't make sense to jump in there like, hey, do you want salt? There's no conditions there that the person wants salt. But in the second situation, I'm actually creating a situation where the person needs the thing I'm trying to give them, which in this case is your services as a real estate agent. We want to set up the need for that before we just offer it. If we just don't set it up, then they're not going to act like they need it. Even if they might actually need it, they don't really know that or feel that until we've set up the circumstances to provide that. And that is why you need to be thinking about the customer journey, even from the very top levels of your content, because if you don't have a strategy in mind, you're just going to keep trying to pitch people who just aren't interested. And ultimately, you'll give up on social media, which a lot of agents do, which is unfortunate because it's such a valuable tool. And the more agents that give up on it, the more opportunity other agents who are willing to put in the time and effort actually get out of creating this. And by the way, because I know I mentioned it too, when you're doing the same thing for ads, basically what that's doing is it's kind of skipping past this like first dial here. So when you're running ads, you kind of don't have to worry about this because you're already taking care of your distribution. So ads already do distribution. You're paying for that. If I can spell it, distribution is paid for. So all you're really doing there is getting in front of people, and your distribution is paid for. So that can handle this one. And then you need to basically, your ad is basically this second piece of content. That is the ad, right? And so ultimately that still needs to lead into a lead magnet, which leads into a conversation, which will lead into a client. So that's really what ads do. They just help you skip a step there because your distribution is already handled. So this strategy is how you can make sure that you're always getting in front of the right amount of people and that you're constantly getting conversations out of it, because the next step always makes sense if you're doing this correctly. And that's how, if you're currently trying to make content and you're not getting any results, you're not getting any leads, you're not getting any clients, you just need more steps in here that make the process more gradual, and it needs to be happening over a long enough time horizon for it to be unlikely that you wouldn't succeed. So guys, hope this is helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.